completely certain that if 8 clients can produce such a row and such a disturbance, then 16 are going to be a damn sight worse. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Does the applicant wish to come forward? Does the applicant?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Would you like to come forward?
Yes, I would.
To make representation? Would you like to do the same? Sit at the table, press the silver button, please, and just introduce yourself.
Gary Cross.
Oh, I've got to keep pressing it, have I?
No, just press when you finish then.
Gary Cross, Lightways, I'm a director of the company. I'd like to leave a statement first if I can. I've got 5 minutes, and then respond back to the comments made by the gentleman. Lightways are a responsible and proactive organisation who specialise in the care and support of people with varying degrees of learning and physical disabilities. We take our role seriously, strive to provide the best accommodation to enable vulnerable adults to live in the environment and the dignity that all of us deserve. We'd like to reassure the community that service users will be properly supported at all times. We support and enable those people to be part of the community and live fulfilled lives. Our focus is about moving people out of very big institutions and supporting them through care pathways. We look for locations particularly like the subject side, as we need neighbours who will not take advantage and persecute our vulnerable residents. These people need to be included and not excluded from society, and that obviously is part of the normal planning cycle with regard to these types of care homes. It is a mixture of C2 and C3 used both for registered and supported living, as there will be some people who require more intensive support, but we aim to promote independence over time, enabling people to move into supported living arrangements. We have staff on site 24/7 to help residents deal with these issues in their everyday lives, and we like shopping and managing their bills, things like that you and I find easy, for them it's very difficult. We have schemes all over the country and have positive relationships with our neighbours. Indeed, you will find many of our residents make very good neighbours. In the application we submit, we are there for often people who are uncertain about the development. It is often due to a lack of understanding about the service. This will be a presentable and unobtrusive development. In terms of the frontage, it is not doubling the frontage, it is actually only about a third of the frontage in total, so it is only adding 50%. That's the first point I would like to address. And there will be residents which will probably never notice the difference. I think at this point it's worth commenting about the problems around one service user which was placed by the local authority on information that turned out to be quite difficult for us to manage. That person has moved on. He was only there for 2 months, and I think that the statements about the noise and that were probably over-exaggerated. But that person has since moved on. We've made very quick efforts to try to find an alternative place for that person who was wrongly placed in our home at the time, and that was done. This is a much needed and extremely worthwhile scheme, which creates financial savings for the council, local jobs, and improves the life of vulnerable adults. And I ask for your support from committee members here today. As I say, we are working very strongly with Wirral about the placement of people within this local facility that we are looking to develop. As I answered the point about the extension, it is not doubling the frontage. It is a single frontage building versus the double frontage of the two together. The car parking is something that we are using a little bit, but we have not got full use of the site because at the moment there's dumped earth all over the front of it. There are other things, but we will make sure that the car parking is working. I think that's something we will work very hard on. And as I said, with the gentleman about the shouting, we did have a particular problem with a client who had quite difficult language interactions with people. He has moved on, and the other clients are not like that.
If neighbours do have complaints, what do you do with complaints? If they come to you with complaints about swearing behaviour, how do you deal with that?
We deal with that through management of the team, with the local support of social services, and we deal with that with clients. I mean, clearly, people are independent people. These are not locked up people. Let's just make that sure. This is not a secure environment. People have their own liberties, and in some respects, we have to manage our behaviours. We work with them very positively to manage those behaviours. We work very positively, and we would get recommendations from the local social services team for this service.
Just a quick one, which I think has some impact on all of us. If you look on page 61 of the agenda, we've got representations at the top of the page, and number 1, and I quote, "There are existing problems of noise and disturbance in the street, in the communal areas, foul language, verbal abuse, aggression and intimidation, which has resulted in police involvement." I wonder whether we have contacted the police to find out whether they were involved and what they did, because that seemed to be one of the concerns of the objectors, that whatever goes on here will in some way exacerbate existing alleged problems. So I'd be interested to know if the police were ever consulted, if not, why not, or if their view on this is not considered relevant.
Through you, Chair. Sorry. I mean, the short answer is no, we wouldn't normally consult the police on this kind of use and on the issues involved in this kind of use. It all comes down to personality, and how personality isn't something that's inherently a problem with this type of use. So the short answer is no.
Has obviously not doing anything from there. No, but you can do it as part of the committee.
I can confirm that the police were involved, not because along with the help of David, I involved them. One of the issues around Wellington Road is that it's a feeder road from Brighton Station into the centre of Brighton, and we had a very good summer, and it attracted a lot of visitors, including some of the visitors that you wouldn't especially welcome, who discovered that there were people in a care home at that location on Wellington Road, and we even had incidents of looting by people in that Wellington Road at the residents in these already existing care home. So yes, we did have quite a lot of trouble in Wellington Road in that general area. Partly it was focused, to be fair, on Cllr, which is on the big building just on the opposite side. But in general, Wellington Road was a difficult location in the Brighton city, and part of the focus was this area.
I think I can just add something very quickly, Chair. It sounds as though the problems were caused by visitors to the site, or people going past the site, not by the care home residents themselves. It was difficult to find a reason for turning an application down on the grounds of police problems if it's not caused by the residents, but caused by people who should know better.
Well, I think it was probably a combination of the fact that there was a resident there that shouldn't really have been there, who was attracting attention.
It's not a planning issue, that's a problem we have with this. That's not a planning issue. We're here purely to judge. It's a planning decision that we're making here.
Sorry, Chair. I think exacerbation of an existing problem is a planning reason for refusal if it's sufficiently substantial to merit consideration. We have refused applications in the past because we believe there would be an exacerbation of an existing problem. I'm not sure it would apply here, but it's certainly a planning reason for refusal.
And we'll move to Stuart and then.
I think it's an exacerbation issue as well. We've got this policy about 20% or clustering. It says 20% in the area, and I think it is reasonable. It's reasonable for the officers to have taken those frontages and done the count. It brings it to 17% if the application is allowed, which effectively only leaves this idea of clustering that we have three side by side, which potentially could be picked up to say because you might have an increased problem. I mean, I think on clustering, and it's a fair line, but I think given its previous commercial use, the officers have probably made the right judgment call. On that, if you like, 51-49 split, if this had been a residential use moving into a institution of that use, I might have thought about it completely differently. But I think the cluster is already there of residential uses and exists. So it's a fine line for me, the one about clustering, and it is a concern, and there's been problems in the past. But I've heard what's been said, and I'm aware of other places, you know, in the ward, from time to time, we do get placements which are inappropriate, and when residents become concerned about the management of the facilities. I think all I can say, you know, to the organisation is that to allow that to go on for 2 months straight away as poor management. You know, I'll say that to the applicants clearly. You know, when problems exist, it doesn't give. You know, we need these sort of places. You know, we need support from communities, but it does not help when issues are allowed to develop by managers and owners of properties like this. And, you know, criticising obviously the private company, the council may have its own role to play in as far as criticizes. But you know, I'll just say that bit as clear as I can. But my judgment call on it, as the 50/50 judgment call, is that our policies are satisfied in terms of the 20% rule and the cluster. So I'm going to support the recommendation.
Paul?
Thank you, Chair. It's just a comment really, and in many ways it echoes what Councillor Kelly has just said in relation to the fact that this resident was suffered, if you like, by the locality for some 2 months. It just seems to me to be an extremely long period of time for residents to suffer this type of behaviour, and it was almost blasé, in fact, the way the applicant approached it when he answered the questions and the issues put by the objectors, and he said, well, you know, he was moved within 2 months. 2 months is too long for the residents to have suffered in that way, and I do think it does reflect some poor management. I see some of the applicants now shaking their head, but no, 2 months is too long in my opinion.
Can I respond to that?
I'm sorry, it's not a planning issue, so really, you've had your say, so I'm sorry you can't. Are there any other comments from the committee?
Chair, only to say that quite often the planning committee becomes the focus of other issues and other events. There seems to have been a breakdown in the relationship between the care home and immediate neighbours, and that's regretful, but isn't a planning issue as such. I think Stuart's right, if we look at the potted history of the actual property we're talking about, it has been commercial use of various kinds. So my view is that, you know, I can understand having that relationship breakdown, it reflecting in the sort of attitude towards in your application. So that's really for the management of that organisation to work on and regain the trust of its immediate neighbours and be welcome in the area, as opposed to, in this particular case, not being welcome. But in terms of planning, I think it is a genuine application or a genuine use that's already been permitted in its previous life. So my view is that.
Is there anybody else who has any more comments? The officer's recommendation is approval, so is there anybody going to propose and second?
I'll propose approval then.
Steve? And second. So all those in favour of the officer's recommendation to approve this application? And against? 3. So the officer's recommendation has been carried. Thank you very much. Can we have a presentation for number 6, please? Number 7, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. The application site is a former petrol filling station which has now been cleared. The proposal is to erect a retail unit on the site. It's a single-storey building that's proposed, a glass and brick structure with a flat roof. It's set towards the back of the site, and it would be set about 30.5 metres to the site from Church Lane. This would allow 10 parking spaces for customers along the front of the site, whilst the staff parking and servicing would take place to the rear of the site. Within residential areas, some small-scale retail uses can be acceptable, provided we don't result in harm to the amenity of adjoining properties. In terms of residential amenity, the fact that there's a previous use, which is a service station which could open till late in the evening, the distance from existing residential properties, and the availability of off-street car parking, leads us to conclude that it's probably an acceptable proposal that wouldn't harm residential amenity in the area. Concerns have been expressed about the impact on existing retail uses in the area. But for a unit of this scale, we wouldn't normally take competition into consideration, but obviously the vitality of existing shops is an issue. And it could be argued that providing an additional place for people to shop could well increase footfall to the shops that are already there, promote the shops that are already there. So it's not recommended, or we're not concerned about the impact on the adjacent shopping centre on that basis, and we feel the proposal is acceptable and is recommended for approval. There is a competition.
Thank you, Sheila. We all went on a site visit to have a look at this derelict piece of empty land on Tuesday. Is there anybody here for the petitioners? Anybody here wants to make representation for the petitioners? Okay. Does the Warden Council have anything to say? No? Okay. Should we open it to debate? Has anybody got anything to say? Steve?
Chair, I mean, again, look at its history in terms of its previous usage. It has been, and always has been, well, I can remember, petrol service station and the like. A lot of people lament the loss of the small petrol service stations, which have all been pulled in and dragged into the huge supermarkets, Tesco's, Asda, and the like. So in a way, it's a welcome development in terms of tidying up what is pretty old site. And I reflect, Stuart might join me in agreeing this. We had a petrol station at Canfield Lane, shops there, and they abandoned and still abandoned for a long period of time. And I know which I'd sooner have is actually something that's capable of look after and have something of a lost derelict site. It is opposite some residential properties, but I think the hours conditions, again, one would argue that will make it difficult for business to survive. That's obviously taken into consideration residential nature opposite in terms of the hours of operation. So my view is that it's something that should be supported.
It's strange, yes, that's how it goes in my mind when I was reading it, but unfortunately Steve reached a completely different conclusion. as is what I want. I mean, I still remember the history of the Telford Close, as I can see officers with their hands on this one. There was an application from that site in Telford Close for a large supermarket, whatever it was necessarily, very similar to this. And it was refused against officers' advice, and the refusal was held in appeal because of the impact that it was likely to have on the vitality of the existing shops. Steve will be pleased to hear that in the pages that we go through that the much smaller units are now proposed for that size, 6 shops that also make the vitality of that area much improved. What concerned me about this was that we were looking at potentially a mini supermarket that would probably have a detrimental effect on our community. There's no way people would go here and then. There's no easy approach. And the point is made by government that the links between this site and Alton Green are extremely poor. And actually, yes, the design of Alton Green is extremely poor, faces entirely the wrong way, but that's not the fault necessarily of those shocking. The point is also made that there isn't a unit of the same size currently vacant. There is a unit of the same size, it's just not being used. It's being used as a children's shop area up in Alton Green at the moment. What concerns me here really is that you did have a supermarket over Alton Green, which is now we could plan permission to a larger supermarket type thing here. It will have the effect, obviously, of drawing trade from Elton Green. There will be more vacant units where there's already a lot of vacant units. Or it will have the effect of them saying, actually, we can't find an end user because businesses have already found Elton Green, and we'll need to subdivide this into smaller ones. That formed part of the application, as I understood it, and officers are conditioning at the moment that there should be no subdivision. However, if there is no end user, we won't be able to sustain that condition. We wouldn't be able to sustain it. They would come back to our organisation and say, look, we're not able to find, we built this building, or we haven't built this building, we're not able to sustain it. It wouldn't be a new plan application, it would simply be an application for the removal of what could be perceived as an unreasonable condition. Again, impossible to tear down. That would have the effect of a mini shopping area in direct cost. Elton Green may as well do all of it. Which leads us back to our policies, I guess, and we all need to take account of our policies. We ought to, as we did with Townfield Close those years ago, seek to defend the vitality and viability of the existing sector and allow this application to point is made across page 68. The evidence that we have from the core strategy or the major core strategy is that in fact there is no current need for additional retail floor space within the borough, and I'm not allowed to be hypothetical, but there is a point made at the top of page 69 that the site is in the resident potential areas bordered on two sides, well, three sides of this. Within the residential properties, and I accept what's said about residential communities, but the site will be issues with residential development. No, I'm not allowed to hold that as an opinion in 10 years' time. But certainly the vitality and development of in my view will suffer, and on those levels. However, I accept what Steve says, that sometimes you might be better with the bed in the hand, you've got a ground size. It may have problems, I'm just not going to say this, so I'm prepared to happy to listen to better contributions, maybe in this check.
That was some recommendations for the council, so okay, we've got a mover, we've got a second, thank you, Pat. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please show. Okay. 10. And against? 2. So that's been carried. Thank you very much. So we refer to sort of we're reversing now to the agenda. I'm going to give you a minute while we do number 4. So David will take over the chair.
Can I ask what you need to achieve from Mr. Director's work? Because I have to read some time and see. And my book only comes once a month.
Okay. The next item is agenda item 4, which is the former Daryl Industries, Kelvin Road, Seacombe. Can we have a presentation, please, Sheila?
Thank you, Chair. The proposal is to change the use of an industrial unit, or 2 industrial units, to an indoor skate park. The buildings are vacant and have been for a number of years. The site includes a car park and service area to the north of the buildings. The proposal is just a temporary use, it's for a 3-year consent, whilst the ramp works that the skateboard organises, whilst they raise the funding to establish a more permanent base for the site that has got planning permission on the road. Whilst we wouldn't normally support non-industrial use in industrial buildings, because this has been vacant for a number of years, because it's a temporary use, we feel it's acceptable because there is a plan set, albeit outline stage, in already extent at Bernie Road, that this would be reasonable to accept a temporary consent on this basis. It's an activity which I'm sure people with disadvantaged background, it's a charity. It, as well as providing some of people's landscapes, it has employment and training opportunities for people who may want to use it. And it is recommended.
Thank you, Sheila. Just a quick comment on page 41. You have mentioned, of course, that approved subject to no additional representations raising additional planning matters being received by the 27th of November. Could you just explain that for the benefit of the committee and the audience, please?
Yes, that's correct, Chair. The consultation period doesn't actually run out to the 27th of November, but because they would lose a funding opportunity for Sport England, we wanted to bring it to yourselves tonight to get approval to continue and issue a decision at the delegated powers for further representations by the 27th.